Well, hello everybody. I wanted to quickly kind of make a bit of a disclaimer here before I wax on about wax on, wax off, and my own musings about God and God 3.0 and AI God and money God and all the different gods. The theological God, Abrahamic religions or even Hindu or, Buddhism to a certain degree, because people are kind of sanctified when they achieve enlightenment. Not so much about everything is sacred, animism or shamanism or things like that. But since the beginning of civilization, when we settled in larger communities, farming and so on, and our culture, our civilization took on a different shape, and kingdoms were born and so on. I think it's important that people's concept of God reflect their experience, their context, what they know. So culture is what you think, what you do. Behavior, like washing your hands 1,000,000 times before dawn and during your prayers, if you're a Hasidic Jew or something. And that these signals of religiosity are expensive and indicate that you're a trustworthy member of the group. Well, this goes back to game theory, and I'll talk about that in another video, in another playlist. But for now, I just wanted to say that I'm not a theologian, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a trained scholar. I haven't spent 10,000 hours reading all the books dealing with the differences between various types of Protestantism and Catholicism, encyclicals, and Orthodox Christian debates. These are really serious subjects, and a lot of people really take God seriously, so that whatever concept of God that they have, that they inherited or adopted for whatever reason, is very serious to them. So I want to talk in my next video about what's God for, what's God's purpose, what do I think God's purpose is in human culture. I'm not an anthropologist either, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not trying to put my stamp on anything, like my opinion matters, it really doesn't. But it might help to stimulate you in terms of various ways you can think about the issues, and in doing so it can open your mind to these questions so that they don't seem so stupid or untoward or uncomfortable or unfashionable or politically incorrect or woke or whatever your epitaph is or whatever your compliment is. These are serious subjects, whether you're a biblical scholar, a biblical, criticism type person, whether you're into mythology, whether you're a presbyter or a Catholic priest, or at the seminary, getting your PhD in something, writing books on the subject from a historical point of view or from a sociological perspective, people trying to understand whether religion is good for us in some ways. I think it's inherent, it's woven into us. And there are lots of mysteries in the universe, so even if we're scientistic, and I'm using that word purposefully because it can be an epitaph, like science is a religion. I don't think that science is a religion, and you know that if you've listened to me, but anyway. There are so many mysteries out there, and science is a quiver, a set of tools and practices that can allow us to understand things about nature. I don't think we can throw that away to go back to, like, make America ignorant again, or make Iraq religious fanatical again, or whatever it is. We're not going to go back unless a lot of us die. AMOC stops and the world's weather goes chaotic and most people pass away. That could shift it pretty quickly. But anyway, it's a serious subject, and I take it very seriously and it's dear to my heart. I don't judge people for being religious. I went through a phase when I was interested in the new atheists, Sam Harris. Particularly, I felt a connection with Christopher Hitchens. I think the arguments between theological or religious people and atheists, people who identify as atheists, are interesting arguments and worthy of auditing and listening to. And you can learn a lot from them. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to believe. So if I seem facetious or I giggle at my own whatnot, which happens from time to time, I'm sorry if that's annoying, but can't help it. I'm not taking any of this lightly. It's a serious subject for me, and I'm always exploring these things. And I think it's important to cultivate within yourself the kind of curiosity that takes a lot of things into account. So does soil biology matter? You know, how much can we learn about that? How much is mysterious about that? And do Christians need to know about it? Because we're not farming traditionally like the Quakers did, or the Pilgrims. You know, things have moved on from that, and we're at scale. And maybe a lot of chemical evil has to be perpetrated to feed 8 to 10 billion people. And can they still have a life without being organic, even though they might get, you know, diabetes or metabolic syndrome or heart disease when they're 80, or cancer and die? How do obese people live happy lives even though they may have some health problems? And then, of course, profits first, and pharmaceutical companies take advantage of that and make money. Never mind all that. All these things are here, and they require our attention if we're going to move on, because it's unrealistic to believe that all of these debates between various religious factions are going to somehow just end overnight. I mean, barring a miracle, right? It's just not going to happen. There are all kinds of cultures around the world with all kinds of belief systems. They have good aspects to them, aspects that can help us lead better, brighter, more compassionate, more moral lives, maybe even happier lives, and so on. And they have bad aspects to it. You know, the Bible doesn't kill, people do. So if you read a story about Arjuna and Krishna and that battle and all that stuff, pagan sacrifice or whatever, war, can it be transcended? Can we get to a better state? And what are the pathways to doing that? At any rate, we live in the modern world. We can't just shed it. We have to learn how to live within it and improve things if we feel that's important. If you think your fate is in God's hand, I take it seriously, you believe that, so you suck it up and deal with the pain. You know, your son dies of leukemia and you say, well, you know, that's tough, but the Lord has a plan and we'll be reunited in heaven. I'm not going to say that's a bad way to think. But I'm sure while you were in the hospital doing everything you could to let modern medicine save your child's life, it was good to have those extra weeks with your son. Of course, if you're from a denomination that believes all of that's satanic and demonic and you stay away from all medicine, well, you're going to live the way we did in the past. So if you get a bacterial infection from a nick with the hoe in the garden one day and it turns into gangrene or something, and you amputate the leg, and then you can't deal with other infections and you get sepsis and you die. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. Or if infant mortality goes up, things like that. You just have to suck it up and have more babies. And we did that for tens of thousands of years, so why wouldn't we be able to do that again? It's just, you know, one of those things. And of course, ethics has a lot to do with it, so I'm not going to go into that, you know, effective altruism and all that kind of thing. Like, does everybody on the planet deserve a perfect life, you know? And then you get into these scary things like transhumanism and singularity that some people just find extremely inhuman and distasteful. And I can imagine a world where people understood, let's say, Orthodox Christianity in the right way, whatever that is, and trust me, I don't know, where communities lived pretty good lives based on those rules and heuristics and moral affirmations and commitments and so on. So yes, I take this very seriously. So if I sound facetious or crack some humor or whatever, I'm really not trying to insult anybody. Whether you're Islamic, Orthodox Christian, you know, Catholic, Protestant, of whatever flavor, whether you're some denomination of Buddhist, you know, there's so many and they disagree about a lot of things, or whether you're Hindu. I knew a Hindu scholar when I lived in Mumbai, and she was a lawyer as well, and she was brilliant, and she knew so much about the Upanishads, and it was fascinating to talk to her about it, and it's so deep. I mean, there's no way I could even scratch the surface, and it would be very hard in my reading to scratch the surface of a lot of various schools of philosophy, continental philosophy, for example, or utilitarianism, if you wanted to dive into that, phenomenology, existentialism. How much do you have to read to really understand the various thought leaders of postmodernism, per se, quote unquote? And then to delve into the Orthodox Church and the various feuds between different countries in the church, if there are any, and I'm sure there are. You know, it's very hard, but I would say if you wanted to delve into any of these domains, you have to delve in, you have to spend the time, you have to do the reading, you have to have good teachers and mentors, and you have to be in community with other people who are also curious about those things so that you can absorb the knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom from it. And in doing so, you will learn something and grow as a human being. So the next video, I'm going to talk about what's the purpose, you know, why do we have God? And the other thing is, like, I always want to ask people, it's like, why do you believe? And they might say, well, I need to be saved. Well, why do you believe you need to be saved? And why do you think this is the path to salvation? And of course, you can interrogate atheists, anybody with a philosophy of life, a way of life, a way of looking at things. And I do, in a metaphorical sense, think that our system today, our global culture, is demonic, satanic, evil, destructive, an omnicidal heat engine that could destroy everything. And I think we've got to get our heads and hands around it and figure out how to improve things, and maybe some of these traditions can help that. I don't know. But I'm not going to be just a closed-minded atheist, even though I know I can't prove the existence of God. That's a faith thing. And I wouldn't want to try to. Just like I know I'm never going to understand quantum mechanics or how a quantum computer works, or string theory or the multiverse theory or any of these things. I just don't have time and I can't do the math. But I'm still curious about it, right? So my shallow understanding of it is important to me because it sheds light on my understanding of the world. And this is a beautiful thing in my life. And I think it's an important thing for people, because then maybe you'll slow down and listen to people when they have a perspective on life that's different from your own. So thanks a lot for listening. William T. out.